With the recent 3-year contract extension handed to Esteban Ocon at Alpine, I thought I'd better get my predictions out there as soon as possible before more seats become occupied as the 2022 driver lineup begins to take shape. 2022, of course, will be the first year of the drastic changes in regulations. This is in order to help increase competition and help cars race closer to one another. So it should be a real season of transition and hopefully a season full of unpredictability and surprises. Without further ado, I will now reveal my 2022 driver predictions. I will start with the current constructor leaders in Red Bull, and I will state the obvious that Max Verstappen will of course be back in 2022. But what about the other seat? Sergio Perez had a bit of a slow start to the year, but since the race at Imola, he's been a great supporting driver for Max Verstappen and of course bagged that win in Azerbaijan, showing he's been more capable than other drivers in that same seat. Don't forget, however, the Austrian manufacturer will want to promote its talent into its main team whenever they see fit to do so, even if it has been a bit more detrimental to the performances in recent years, like the Gasly and Albon experiment. I do think though that Pierre Gasly has shown he's very much ready for a drive for a bigger team, and has shown this with some good quality results and a podium this year, and will do a far better job now than his Red Bull stint in 2019. Ultimately, however, the Verstappen-Perez partnership is working, and I personally think that it would be a good idea for Red Bull to see some stability in their driver lineup. So on this point, I predict Red Bull will keep the Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez partnership for 2022. Mercedes currently see themselves in rather unfamiliar territory and have a genuine challenge on their hands if they are again to win both championships. Lewis Hamilton has talked about retirement, but like I initially predicted for my 2021 season predictions, I don't think he'll hang up the racing gloves just yet and go again in 2022, like he has also been suggesting this year. He still potentially has 2, maybe 3 good years left in him to seriously challenge for a championship, and I think Mercedes will do everything in their power to make Hamilton the most decorated driver in history. But what about the Bottas conundrum? It's easy to see that Bottas has been off the pace this season, albeit with a bit of misfortune in Imola and Monaco, while George Russell did impress in his brief stint in the Mercedes last year, and many believe he's ready for a promotion. It additionally may be a necessary promotion too, with Bottas' slump in 2021. Bottas does still have time to turn it around and show that he's still the man to play a supporting role for Hamilton. Mercedes' main question will be whether Bottas is still the guy to partner Hamilton to try and keep that stability that they've had for 5 seasons now, or is it time to introduce the rising star in Russell and have 2 genuine stars compete against one another in what would hopefully elevate the performances of both drivers in a Mercedes? For me though, George Russell is the man for Mercedes in 2022, and it's time to see what he can really do in a full season with a front runner. So I have Lewis Hamilton pairing up with George Russell in 2022. Looking at Ferrari, and with Charles Leclerc signed until 2024 and Carlos Sainz signed until 2022, it is not expected for Ferrari to change their lineup next year, especially in Leclerc's case, as Ferrari see him as a future world champion. So with that said, I think Ferrari will honour these contracts for next year, and honestly, it's a no-brainer. McLaren are in a similar situation to Ferrari, with both drivers contracted into the 2022 season, and I expect them to have the same driver lineup next year, despite the early struggles of Daniel Ricciardo, so really nothing else to add here. Alpine are actually in a comparable scenario to McLaren and Ferrari too. As mentioned before, Ocon has just tied up a 3-year contract and Alonso is said to be on a multi-year contract. The only thing that I can really think of that would prevent this pairing from entering into 2022 is Alonso's fiery personality, which has caused frictions with his teams in the past. But there are no signs of this currently, and with Alonso now starting to get accustomed back into the F1 grind, expect to see Ocon and Alonso remain as Alpine drivers in 2022. Not the news you want to hear if you're Oscar Piastri or Christian Lundgaard. Now to Aston Martin, and Vettel is contracted into 2022, but I cannot say in full confidence that Lance Stroll is contracted past this year, even if Planet.com believes he's contracted into 2022 with his contract details kept private. Though you would think he'd be staying on, especially seeing that his dad is the chairman and one of the primary owners of the team. Stroll's holding his own as well for the most part against Vettel, and I don't see any reason why Lance Stroll and Sebastian Vettel wouldn't be driving for Aston Martin in 2022, so for me, the driver lineup remains as it is. AlphaTauri have the potential to completely change the driver lineup if they see fit. The Red Bull driver program is just stacked at the moment, and they are always looking to promote their young talent into Formula 1. Juri Vips is looking to become the first ever Estonian driver in Formula 1, and I've been highly impressed by what Liam Lawson has brought to the table so far, and is rather unlucky in my opinion not to be in the top 5 of F2 as of now. Gerhard de Rivela is also a notable driver in the program. Looking now at the current drivers in Gasly and Tsunoda, and Gasly is ready for a drive for a bigger team. There's only one problem with this. Will there actually be a team that offers Gasly this drive for 2022? I am not so sure of this, as there are already limited options in 2022 for him. As for Tsunoda, he has initially impressed, but a number of mistakes, particularly in qualifying sessions, have seen people on the paddock raise questions about whether he got promoted too early. Alex Albon is waiting for his opportunity to come back into F1, and if he does an excellent job in DTM, he may well get another opportunity. Ultimately, even though it goes against Red Bull's direction of holding onto drivers past a certain period of time, I think Gasly is just too good to let go compared to having two inexperienced drivers, and I think Gasly will be joined by Yuki Tsunoda for a second consecutive season, and the Japanese driver I'm guessing will be given one more season to prove himself. Alfa Romeo are another team that could have the possibility of having a driver lineup overhaul. Kimi Räikkönen has been in the sport forever, and retirement looms over his head for another year. Yet, he may still go on in 2022, which would be a popular move amongst fans. I did say last year that he would retire, and I was wrong. However, I'm going to play a broken clock and say that Kimi Räikkönen will retire at the end of 2021. As for Antonio Giovinazzi, we know that he's in Ferrari's allocated seat at Alfa, and with the enormous amount of talent coming through the driver academy, he will highly be pressured and motivated to perform. Giovinazzi for me is a good driver and has shown some great glimpses, but for me, his performances don't really jump out at you as amazing drives if you get what I mean. And with Ferrari's driver academy stacked with talent, I think Ferrari will want to promote one of their academy drivers, so I think Giovinazzi will fall victim to the harsh F1 industry and be seatless in 2022. This would open up 2 vacant spots, and surely the first one would have to go to Robert Schwartzman. And even though I know that Callum Arlott is currently the reserve driver, Schwartzman has a ridiculous amount of potential, already being a F3 champion, as well as putting in a great rookie season in F2 last year, and I expect him to put in another great season this year and prove he deserves a seat at Alfa Romeo. The second seat is more interesting in terms of potential candidates. Will they go for another youngster, or will they want someone more experienced? The bookies would probably predict another experienced driver in either Bottas, Hülkenberg, or even Van Dorn. But with all that said, I'm going to throw this at you instead and go a bit left field here. Théo Pourchaire does have ties to Sauber, who are of course still linked to Alfa Romeo, and since Pourchaire is part of the Sauber junior team, they could maybe look to promote him into F1 next year, which by then he will be 18 years old and legal age to do so. I will go with the bold call and say that Alfa Romeo choose both Schwartzman and Pourchaire in 2022. Not gonna lie, I will most likely be wrong on this call, but I like to have the odd crazy prediction here and there. Williams next, and Latifi should still be at the team in 2022, especially with the insane amount of money he brings in, but he will likely be under more pressure in 2022 as the ultra talented George Russell won't be his teammate anymore. So the predicted vacant seat is honestly wide open for anyone. Does Bottas come back? Is Dan Ticktum ready for F1? Will they promote reserve driver Jack Aitken? Maybe an outsider, Stoffel Van Dorn? Nick de Vries? For most people, I think they'd have Bottas as the most likely candidate, although for me, I think he may take a year off and maybe drive some rally cars, as I don't think he'd want to be racing at the back of the grid. For my pick though, and I'll rightfully guess that Guan Yu Zhou will leave the Alpine Academy and join Williams in what could be a great deal to capitalize in that massive Chinese market, and Guan Yu Zhou is no scrub either, as he currently leads the F2 Championship as of the upload date for this video. And finally, Haas have been the clear perennial backmarkers in 2021 and will be desperate for things to change next year. Mick Schumacher is contracted until 2022 and should remain for another year to see out his contract. Nikita Mazepin is in the same boat, but his performances have not been good against Schumacher, at least early on, but has improved a bit since. Even if Mazepin doesn't perform well overall, he just brings in so much money to the team, and furthermore, his old man may even buy the team at some stage, so I cannot see him leaving, and Haas will retain Schumacher and Mazepin in 2022. I think, as you may have noted from my overall prediction, they've been rather conservative, barring a couple of exceptions towards the back of the grid. I think it will be like this, as last year had a lot of driver movement for this 2021 season, and far more drivers locked into contracts taking them into 2022. I additionally think that there will be far more driver movement for the 2023 season than what will be the case for 2022, as I think most drivers would prefer to have a solid team lineup going into an unpredictable new era of racing, but this is just my opinion. So let me know what you think will happen in terms of the 2022 F1 driver lineups. Like the video, subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to follow me on my socials, links down below.